Hello, Archie Dunlop here with Talking Astrology with Archie on Tuesday, February the 6th, 2024. I was asked a question about the April eclipse by one of the commenters on this channel because, there is a big eclipse on, I think it's April the 8th of this year, so it's in about 2 months' time. And, this eclipse does have an eclipse path that goes across the United States. I think it starts around Maine and then it goes through, I don't know, does it go through Texas or something like that? And some people are concerned about this eclipse and, they want to know, what does it mean? Is it something we should worry about? And that is something I want to do in this video, really look at this eclipse and consider how previous eclipses have worked out. Because in astronomy, there is something called the Metonic Cycle. So new and full moons will repeat every 19 years. So every 19 years, you will have a new moon in a similar or in an identical position. So I thought I would look at the Metonic Cycle to perhaps understand how this lunation on April the 8th, I think it's April the 8th, or is it 9th? I think it's April the 8th. April the 8th, 2024 is going to work out, and I think we find something quite interesting. I mean, it's also a good thing to consider the Metonic cycle, the fact that you do have repetitions every 19 years. And I suppose people are going to be concerned about war. I mean, we've already got all these problems in Ukraine, we've got the Middle East, and so I suppose there's this concern that it might sort of stir things up. But we shouldn't get too excited about these kind of events. Yes, they might have great meaning, but you also can get damp squibs. It really can happen. I sometimes think that being an astrologer isn't about talking about what does work. It's about what doesn't work, and perhaps understanding the limitations of astrology. And just because you've got a big eclipse doesn't mean anything is going to happen at all. So yes, that is something I'm going to be looking at today. But before I do that, I want to look at the astrology and the I Ching for today, which is Tuesday, February the 6th, 2024. So let's have a look, see what's going on. Now, top right, we've got a map there, a map of Middle East. You've got a red line, and you've got some yellow lines, and I will be discussing this map and trying to make sense of it with reference to the April eclipse. But as far as the positions of the planets are concerned today, so you can see up here that the moon has moved into Capricorn. So London time, the moon moves into Capricorn at 9 minutes past midday. So it's that's sort of around lunchtime, is it? Early lunchtime, brunch. So that's London. So if you're in Paris or Berlin, then the moon will move into Capricorn at 9 minutes past 1 in the afternoon. If you're in Australia or New Zealand, then the moon is going to moon will move into Capricorn very late in the day, if at all. So I don't think that you would have to worry about Moon being in Capricorn. You can basically take the view that the Moon is going to be in Sagittarius all day. Now, if on the other hand you're in New York, then the Moon moves into Capricorn at 9 minutes past 7 in the morning. If you're in Los Angeles, then that's going to be 9 minutes past 4 in the morning. So from an American perspective, the Moon is going to be in Capricorn basically all day long. From the perspective of Western Europe, it's more sort of last half of the day. So, what does it mean when the Moon moves from Sagittarius to Capricorn? Well, we do experience something of a change. I mean, the Moon in Sagittarius is very energetic. It's very communicative. It's a bit tactless. It's a bit crass. Moon in Sagittarius can be a bit rude. I mean, not that it wants to mean any. Not that it means any harm. It doesn't. It's not rude because it is trying to upset people. It's just that from a Sagittarian perspective, honesty is the way forward. But with the Moon moving into Capricorn, I think people do become more reserved. They are more likely to think before they speak, people tend to be a lot more careful, especially as the Moon, when it moves into Capricorn, it makes a sextile aspect to Saturn. So Moon sextile Saturn, it's a nice aspect. It's this sextile. It is about ability. It's about talent, but with Moon and Saturn, it is about control as well. I think it's going to be relatively easy to sort of control our feelings, and certainly to perhaps to channel them into particular areas, and that is certainly constructive. Though before the Moon moves into Capricorn, I suppose I should point out that the Moon is making a square aspect to. Before the Moon moves into Capricorn, right at the end of Sagittarius, it is making a square to Neptune. So I think it's not so much of an issue if you're in the Americas, but if you're in Western Europe, the morning may be a bit confusing. There may be things that make it difficult to work out what's going on, and there may be confusing signals. And if you're further east, if you're in Asia, Australia, New Zealand, then the Moon square Neptune may actually be the dominant theme of the day. Moon in Sagittarius square Neptune. That suggests sort of emotional confusion, not fully understanding what's going on, and it's also about being sensitive. But with all this emotional energy coming our way, can we really make sense of it? So that could be a bit of a problem. Now, in terms of the day, astrologically, it's not actually very busy. I mean, there's not a great deal going on. Yes, the Moon goes into Capricorn. Yes, the Moon squares Neptune. Yes, Moon sextiles Saturn. But that's it. I mean, there really isn't a great deal else going on. Now, there are a few midpoints that are perhaps worthy of note. Now, like yesterday, but really close now, we've got Mars conjunct the Mercury-Venus midpoint. You can see there's Venus, there's Mercury, and you can see that Mars is sort of on the midpoint between the two. That is really good. I mean, Mercury, Venus as a pair are about artistic and creative and business talent, and so many of us can express this talent with great force and great assertion. So if we have a talent, now's the time to tell people about it, to reveal it, because if we leave it much longer, we might miss our opportunity. So, I think that is quite a useful aspect. Um, Now, on a different note, there could be some sluggishness today because the Sun is aspecting the Mercury Admetos midpoint. Admetos is a hypothetical planet, often connected with delay. So Mercury Admetos might be the principle of having sort of slow thoughts, and it takes us a long time to process things, and there may be maybe a certain sense of fear while all this is going on, so we don't really want to communicate, and because of that we might just be too late. We might miss the moment. So if you've got an appointment or if there's something you're planning on doing, I would suggest you do it and you arrive on time. And you don't allow yourself to be tripped up by sort of sluggish thinking. You've got to be aware and alert. Also, I suppose it's worth pointing out that I don't know, Jupiter is on the Hades Admetos midpoint. Jupiter is supposed to be how we move forward with our life. We're open to possibilities, and I think with Jupiter hitting the Hades Admetos midpoint, there may be a feeling that those possibilities are somehow being denied to us, and we might feel that it's almost a sort of a feeling that things are dying almost. I mean, not literally dying, but just things are just really slow, grinding to a halt, and it may be just difficult to get this vision out, and we might feel that our vision is sort of going to die on the vine, which, without ever being harvested. Or maybe we'll think, oh well, we can't do it today. We'll wait until tomorrow. Well, if you take that attitude, you might actually miss the moment. So don't allow yourself to fall victim to excessively negative thinking. But, with these midpoints, particularly the midpoints involving the hypothetical planets, I wouldn't necessarily get too upset about them. I think the main theme for today is that there's not actually much going on. Moon in Capricorn, sextile Saturn, Moon in Sagittarius, square Neptune. It's really quite a desert today. It's really not much going on. And, this is going to be reflected on what I say when I talk about the 12 signs. So, I am going to now talk about the 12 signs of the zodiac and what I think the day is going to be like for the 12 signs. So, yes, these are my star sign forecasts for today, which is Tuesday, February the 6th, 2024. Aries. Aries, you have got big ideas, and there are things you want to get going with. You're impatient. You believe that there are many possibilities out there, and I think that is good. But you have to make the transition. So that transition, Aries, is about moving from a place where you're thinking about all these possibilities, these wonderful ideas, and then moving into a place where you actually have to take these ideas and actually ground them and actually use them in a practical way. And that transition could be difficult, at least to begin with. You might sort of confuse yourself. You might feel that you're not in the right position to take advantage of these ideas. Just because something is wonderful and just because you hear about a wonderful way of being, you might just have second thoughts. You might have your doubts. And I think, Aries, it's just so important that you're able to see it through. And I think you're going to be helped by the fact that you will have some discipline. I mean, after all, the moon is moving into Capricorn, and it's then making a sextile to Saturn. So, from an Aries perspective, when the moon goes into Capricorn, you're suddenly in a position where the ideas that you're working with suddenly start to become streamlined. You understand that some of your ideas aren't going anywhere and need to be put on hold, or even just disbanded, or just move on from them. But some of your ideas are really quite good, and you can now make something out of them. And you'll be helped by the fact that the moon is making a sextile to Saturn. And so slowly but surely you can really make some good progress with your ideas. And I think, you'll get a lot of appreciation for doing that. But it's a kind of appreciation that may not be particularly obvious. It's somewhat understated. It's not about telling the world what you're doing. Let the world see what you're doing. Let the world recognize what you're doing. And don't be impatient. As far as relationships are concerned, well, I think that there is a bit of scope for things to happen. I think that some of the people close to you are actually very talented. In fact, you're talented as well. I'll probably pick up on that. Just give me a moment. But some of the people you're in touch with are talented. It may be in terms of business. It may be in terms of art. And you need to recognise that, and make the most of what people have got to offer. And this is particularly the case, if you're close to them. I think that what relationships should be about today is about you encouraging someone to make the most of their potential, and to be able to sort of tease out their key talents. And you yourself are pretty talented right now, because Mars, your ruling planet, is conjunct the Mercury-Venus midpoint. Mercury-Venus is a pair of planets which is really connected with talent in many different fields. Whether it's art, music, writing, possibly sport, but probably not. But it's about creative, artistic talent, and you need to be able to tune into that, because I think you'll find that once you are able to show your creative talent, people are going to be very interested in you. So you can see today what you need to be doing. I think that a lot of things can go right today. Just it's important to focus on one or two things, not to overload yourself, because remember, the moon has moved sign. The moon has changed sign. It's moved from Sagittarius to Capricorn. Things aren't so crazy anymore, and you can just be sensible and focused. And I think overall the day should work pretty well for you. Taurus, you are quite talented. There is a lot of talent around at the moment. And so, you mustn't doubt yourself, Taurus. You can bring these talents to bear in terms of how you interact with the wider world. That's a very much an important part of the way you interact. So it's not about boasting. It's just about using your talents in your day-to-day communications, and also using your talents in terms of how you address particular and significant issues about direction. A lot of people are directionless. today, but not you. I think you understand what direction you should be heading in, and by being very clear about where you want to go, how you want to proceed, you'll also be in a position where you're being very clear about your fundamental talents. So, I think that really does look good. And don't limit yourself, Taurus. Don't get stuck into a particular way of being. You have to, you have to reach out. There are things going on, maybe far away, which perhaps you need to engage with. Maybe thousands of miles away in a different country. Because you are quite expansive at the moment. You are looking for new opportunities, new possibilities, and new experiences. And I think if you make the most of everything that's on offer, it can be a really good day. Though don't try to do everything on your own, because it does seem that there are a couple of things you don't fully understand, and it does seem that there is one particular person who's really prepared to help you out. Gemini, you're feeling that the world is becoming a little more serious. I mean, after all, the moon is moving into Capricorn. It's moving out of Sagittarius. So Sagittarius is your opposite sign. In the Gemini chart, Sagittarius tends to be connected with relationships. And so when the moon moves out of Sagittarius, it kind of makes things more complicated. You have to start to deal with people on a sort of deeper level, start to understand the power of their feelings, and maybe understand not just their good points, but their bad points. Understanding people's darkness. That's something you would be advised to engage with. I know it sounds heavy, but it's not really heavy. It's just about understanding people. Everyone's got depth, secret emotional layers. You just have to start to appreciate that. Now, you certainly have a particular way in which you want to engage with the world, and in your own way, you may actually be a bit of a rebel. Geminis will not take kindly to being told what to do. They won't take kindly to having to submit to authority. But you kind of have to work out how far you want to go. Do you really want to make a big fuss about a really small issue? So think about that in particular if you're working today. You might come across something that just feels it's not you. It may feel demeaning. You may take the view that you're right and perhaps your employer is wrong. And the thing could get out of hand. And, I know, Gemini, that you're into talking. I know you like to communicate, and you like to tell people what's on their mind. But there's a time and a place for everything, and it may be that today it might be better for you to keep quiet. It's not what you want to do, but by keeping quiet, I think, Gemini, you could be saving yourself a lot of trouble. And it's a time also when you have to really try to understand what is going on, because I don't think it's always going to be easy to understand what's going on. Especially at the beginning of the day, especially if you're in sort of Asia, Australia, New Zealand with moon square Neptune, um, I think that you may see things in a way that is about over-interpretation. Um, you see something that is actually quite trivial, but you over-interpret it, and you get into this sort of deluded spiral, and it becomes very difficult to make sense of what's going on. And so, Gemini, I think in that situation, it's just important that you try to be a bit grounded. Cancer. Well, the moon is moving into Capricorn, and Capricorn is your opposite sign. As far as when it moves into Capricorn, it kind of depends where you are. As I said at the beginning of this video, close to the beginning, if you're in the Americas, moon is in Capricorn pretty much all day. If you're in Western Europe, it's in Capricorn the sort of last half of the day. If you're in Australasia, then really the moon doesn't move into Capricorn until very late in the day, even into tomorrow. But overall, it does seem that most of us are going to have this experience of moon being in Capricorn today. If you're in Australia, New Zealand, it's going to start to, you'll feel it tomorrow. But Capricorn is your opposite sign. So from a Cancerian perspective, when the moon is in Capricorn, like it is now, relationships could become actually quite important. Especially as the moon is a sextile Saturn. So in the Cancerian chart, the moon is your ruler in Capricorn. And it is sextile Saturn. Saturn is a ruler of Capricorn, your opposite sign. And so moon sextile Saturn would suggest a relationship which is working very well, where both partners are very sensible and no one's doing anything stupid. So that's pretty fortunate. But we shouldn't forget that the moon, your ruler, is in Capricorn, and Capricorn is the moon is in Capricorn is in its detriment. I mean, the moon rules Cancer, therefore it's in its detriment in Capricorn, the opposite sign. So it may be that some Cancerians are a little too self-interested. You just might feel that, you have to put your own priorities first. And maybe you do. But if you're going to do that, if you're going to be selfish, if you're going to be putting your own priorities first, you want to make sure you're not rumbled. You don't want people to see you being selfish, to know that you're being selfish, because that would be very damaging. You somehow need to pursue your core interests, but in a way that is subtle and delicate, that doesn't make too much noise. So you can do that, Cancer, but yeah, you do have to be careful how you go about it. So that's probably something important, because Cancer, the last thing you want is to be accused of being mean, and by mean I mean mean as in someone who likes to hang on to their money. And actually, that is a sort of can be a Cancerian trait, because Cancer is a sign that can be into hoarding, collecting things, doesn't want to give them up. That's okay, Cancer to do that, but again, you don't want to be rumbled. You don't want people to know that's the way you're thinking. But overall, it is a day when you do need to take into account other people, when you do need to take into account the fact that external events are having an influence on your life. It can't be denied. And so have your eyes open. Look at how the world around you is influencing you. And then perhaps you can quietly make a few changes, because I suppose what you're trying to do is you're trying to maximize your independence, but you can't go too far. You do have to accept that today other people do have a lot of influence over you. Leo. Well, Leo, I think you're feeling a bit stuck in some ways. You've got ideas. You've got ideas about the way the world should be run. You've got ideas about the way your life should be run. And that's nice. But you may just feel kind of inhibited. Just actually putting these ideas into practice could be just hard work. You may feel that you're not getting enough support. You may feel that there is going to be a delay, and that you just can't see things through. It's a temporary situation, Leo. So don't worry about it. But that does mean that you shouldn't try too hard today to get things done, because if you try too hard, then in the end your efforts could come to nothing. So yeah, that's really what you do need to do. Looking at relationships, I think looks as if it could be a good day. After all, the sun continues to move through Aquarius, your opposite sign. So it's a time in your life when, or should I say, a time in your year, because the sun obviously goes into Aquarius every year. But at this time of year, Leo, it's just a time when you do understand that there are things out there that, although you don't fully understand them, they nonetheless can have a big impact on you, and you really do need to accept that, and as far as possible, try to be relaxed about it. But if you're concerned about the future, a short-term future in particular, then there are certainly things you can do to protect yourself. In particular, you need to make sure that you are well organized. Good organization really matters today. After all, the moon's in Capricorn. The moon likes things to be well organized. So if you can spend some time just clearing things up, making sure that things are in the right place, being sensible, and preparing perhaps for future events. Some of these events might be definitely going to happen, but a few of them might be possibilities. If they do happen, you've got to be ready and you've got to be prepared. And you might think it's a waste of time preparing for something that might not happen, but I think today that might be a very useful thing to do. Virgo. Now, Virgo, it's very important you don't doubt yourself. Now, that can sometimes happen with Virgos. Virgos can be critical of other people, but they can also be critical of themselves. And so, Virgo, don't be too critical today about what you have and what you haven't got. It's a time, fundamentally, Virgo, where you should be really trying to enjoy yourself. You can enjoy yourself, and at the same time be doing something useful. Just because you're enjoying yourself doesn't mean you're wasting time. In fact, when you're enjoying yourself, you're actually making the most of your time, and you're also going to be at your maximum effectiveness. So do bear that in mind. it's okay to just relax. It's okay to just be, be yourself, have fun, and in the process, try to be creative, because I think today you really can be very creative. There's sort of lots of creative opportunities are available for you. Just make sure that you take advantage of them all. Libra. Libra, you are a very talented person, but it's perhaps not a time to be bringing those talents out into the open. Perhaps some of your key talents, your core talents, they still need a bit of work, a bit of practice. And that kind of practice, that kind of work, it may need a bit of seclusion. You can't just do it in the public eye. If everyone's watching you, you're going to feel self-conscious. And your ability to make things happen is going to be much reduced. Though, there's no denying it, that you're able to show the world what you've got in the best possible light. And I know I've said that a bit of secrecy is important, or suggested that it's important, but it seems that even if you've got a talent that actually objectively is not particularly well developed, I think today you can actually do something. You can do something to get it recognized. So whatever it is, whatever your talent is, even if it doesn't necessarily come to much, you can definitely get recognition for it. So Libra, don't be shy, but give yourself plenty of space to practice. Practicing things today, Libra, could be very important. And also, with the moon moving into Capricorn, there are limits to how much social interaction you can actually handle, because I think in most cases you're probably going to be on best form when you're on home turf. When you're away from that home turf, on other people's turf, I think your ability to get things done is going to be much reduced. So Libra, it's really about making the most of the day's opportunities, and also understanding your strengths and weaknesses. You're going to be strongest when you're on home turf. If you try to be a sort of mad extrovert, meeting lots of different people, going to parties, whatever, it's not going to work. You will be overstretched, and I just don't think you'll achieve very much. Scorpio. Right now, Mars, which is your ruling planet, because Mars does rule Scorpio, it's not Pluto. Right now, Mars is conjunct the Mercury-Venus midpoint. And, Mercury and Venus as a pair are about artistic and creative talent. And so, Scorpio, you can really show the world what you can do. You really shouldn't hold back. You'll be able to communicate your talents. You'll be able to explain to the world what you can do, and that really does put you in a really good position. And you don't have to be modest, but you don't have to show off either. You can just demonstrate what you're able to do, whether it's in terms of art, creativity, writing, could be business, whatever it is, could be dance, whatever you do best. It really is a time to show off, and yeah, you absolutely must not be shy. and ideally you will mix with people who are as talented as you are. It seems that when talented people mix, then talent gets intensified. And even if it's just one person, you hang out with one person who's very creative, you and this other person can really encourage each other, to reach new heights. So I think that is something that something you should really try to focus on. And so that means, when talking about relationships, it's, if you want a good relationship, the basis of that relationship should ideally be artistic talent. And yes, I mean, that talent is, it's not chaotic talent. It's the kind of talent that is really structured. You know how to structure it. You know how to focus it, and I think that's quite exciting. Scorpio, you've got things to do, and there's a world, you've got a world out there, and you need to show the world what you can do. And I think if you get it right, everyone is going to be very impressed. Sagittarius. Well, the moon has been moving has been moving through your star sign for a few days. Now it's out of your star sign. It's in Capricorn. So what that means is you're going to be a bit less crazy than you have been of late. I think you're going to understand your limitations, and you're going to understand, for example, the limitations of money. That, if you haven't got unlimited funds, then there are going to be limits to what you can achieve. And so perhaps what you have to do is consider your financial resources and consider how far those financial resources can actually take you. And that might mean you have to do some rationing, or perhaps you have to do some concentration. So if you've got finite financial resources, you can perhaps only utilize those resources in one direction. If you try to use your resources here, and there, and perhaps give some money away at the same time, it's just not going to work. And you're not going to achieve anything, or at least not going to achieve much. So you do have to be aware of that. You haven't got all the money in the world, and you've got to focus your resources on a particular set of goals. But don't make the mistake, Sagittarius, of thinking that you are alone. There are some very clever people around you. And at first you might regard them as a threat. You might even be jealous of them. Jealousy is a human emotion. We're always, all of us get jealous. It's not so bad. But perhaps you need to accept that you're jealous of someone, but also accept that you can actually benefit from them. You can perhaps learn from them. Just because someone's got more than you, whether it's more experience, more talent, whatever, just because they've got more of something than you, just because they're cleverer from you, doesn't mean you can't benefit from them. Because because I think it's a situation where, if you ask nicely, you may be given some help, given some advice, shown how to do something. Yeah, so if you don't know how to do something, someone is going to be ready to show you how to do it, to demonstrate it. So if you are with other people, it's a win-win situation. Those clever people are prepared to help you out. They will enjoy helping you out, and you will benefit. So perhaps it's important, Sagittarius, to be able to swallow your pride. You can't be the best all the time, and just letting someone else show you the ropes would be a very good thing to be doing. Capricorn, the moon is now moving through your star sign, and that is something to be welcomed. Now, I do understand that the moon is not well placed in Capricorn. I mean, the moon is in its detriment in Capricorn, and moon in Capricorn has a certain reputation for meanness and selfishness, and I think you might well be impacted by this. You might find yourself being selfish. You might find yourself putting yourself and the interests of your family first. But is that a problem? I mean, sometimes it is a problem, but I don't think today it is a problem. So if you find yourself being selfish, don't feel guilty about it unless you're being completely obnoxious. It's just understanding that you have a set of priorities and you need to follow through on those priorities. You can't spend all day helping people. Okay, maybe that's what you do. Maybe you're a charity worker, but most Capricorns have got to put themselves first and not devote too much time to other people and their issues. At the same time, though, Capricorn, Saturn is your ruler, and Saturn is it's conjunct the Sun-Neptune midpoint. That is a problem for some Capricorns, because there is scope there for getting confused. Now, Capricorns usually don't get confused. Capricorns usually know exactly what they're doing. But in this case, you might make a mistake. And I think it's a mistake which will come from your erroneous belief that you understand everything. Actually, there are a couple of things you don't understand. And one of the things you don't understand is maybe a weakness, an emotional weakness, maybe a place where you are overexposed. So Capricorn, I think you need to be aware of that. Find your weakness. Find that part of yourself which is vulnerable to deception. It's important, but I think actually today you can find that, and you can see where the mistake lies. And once you see the mistake, once you see yourself making that mistake or beginning to make that mistake, then Capricorn, you'll be in a good position to correct the problem. Finishing up with relationships, and the moon is starting to make a sextile with Saturn. So Saturn is your ruling planet. The moon is the ruler of Cancer, your opposite sign. So moon sextile Saturn, good aspect, good relationships. You and other people just get on with each other. Not immediately. I mean, not like in a totally spontaneous way. Needs a bit of work, but not much work. And so you can really form some very useful relationships. Useful. The moon is in Capricorn. Things have to be useful with moon in Capricorn. Relationships with a purpose, and maybe relationships with a shelf life. This relationship exists to achieve this purpose. Once the purpose is achieved, maybe the relationship isn't necessary anymore. Now, that sounds a rather cold way of looking at things, but the moon is in Capricorn. That can sometimes be how moon in Capricorn thinks. And right now, the moon is in Capricorn, and Capricorn is your star sign. Aquarius, you may find today that you are ever so slightly stuck. Your mind and your concentration seem to be focused on one thing. And this one thing, in many ways, is a relic of the past. You should have given up on it by now. You should have moved on, but you're not giving up. You're not moving on. You're keeping something alive which should have passed into history long ago. So what is it? I mean, what is that thing that you're just overly focused on, and it's just preventing you from making progress? So if you're feeling stuck today, it's easy to blame other people. It's easy to sort of blame your environment, but perhaps you should be looking for the cause of your stuckness into your own heart, because I do think, Aquarius, that there's something that you're holding on to just a bit too tightly. So hopefully you'll get to grips with that, and you'll understand how best to move forward. Now, I am not saying that it's a bad day. I think that once you've understood what's holding you up, you can actually start to tune into your own abilities. And some of your abilities are really very pronounced, especially those abilities which can be used in a sort of your career. You know what needs to be done, and you mustn't be afraid of using your talents. You don't have to show off. You just have to stretch yourself a bit. So perhaps there's a task that needs to be done, and perhaps you're inclined to say you can't do it, but actually you probably can do it, because your talents are really moving into top gear. And so hopefully, Aquarius, you will be able to move forward with this. And don't be too introspective, and don't be too negative. I know right now that some Aquarians may be tempted to be negative. They may come up with all sorts of reasons why you can't do something, and some of these reasons might be really dramatic, just dramatic exaggerations, which perhaps focus on all the things that could possibly go wrong. And of course, things could always go wrong. There could be a nuclear attack tomorrow, but there probably won't be. So Aquarius, it's just important that you're positive, and you don't allow your negative feelings to get in the way of achievement. Pisces, you're in quite a sociable mood today. You want to mix with people. You want to hear what they've got to say. I mean, you might have a few reservations still. You might be a bit concerned about how people are going to respond to you. Maybe, there's a streak of pessimism there, but I think you shouldn't let it get you down, Pisces, because you are at the moment the one who should be in control. And being in control isn't just about being in control of the world around you. It's also about being in control of yourself. So if you have some negativity, if you have some unreasonable fears, Pisces, you can actually do something about it. You need to engage with these unreasonable fears. Convince yourself that you're actually worrying about nothing. Now, I do understand that sometimes there are things that really we do need to worry about. But obviously I'm talking in a general sense, and you've got to use a bit of common sense and discretion there. You've got to consider the real situation you're in. But I think in most cases your concerns are going to be largely groundless, and you can then really move ahead with whatever you need to move ahead with. But some of the people you mix with, they may be trying to make you a bit nervous, especially if they're people in authority or who speak with authority. So authority makes you nervous. When people are speaking with authority, you get nervous because you're thinking, "Oh, this person has got something on you." You might feel that this person could be the instrument of something quite bad, in a sort of sense of authorities tracking you down. I don't know. That's an exaggeration. But really, Pisces, don't let people make you nervous. The one who should be in authority and actually is in authority is you yourself. After all, Saturn is moving through your star sign, and the moon is making a sextile to Saturn. That should put you in a position of control. Doesn't mean you have to be a tyrant, and look at what people have got to offer. Give them an opportunity to show you what they can do. But you are in control, and so you haven't really got much to worry about. Okay, so that's my forecast for the 12 signs, and what I want to do now is turn to the I Ching. So, as always, I ask the question, what is Tuesday going to be like for those watching the I Ching segment of this video? And the first hexagram I got was hexagram 30, the clinging. Now 30 is a repetition. You'll see the top 3 lines are a repeat of the bottom 3 lines, and the symbol of the top 3 lines is really the sun, and it's sort of the sun rising twice. So on the surface, we have a really very nice situation where it seems that things are sort of reaching their peak. People are able to express themselves. It's like one of those moments of being at the peak of civilization, and things are good. And there's plenty of attention, and what we have to do is we have to cling on to the things onto the things that are precious, and it's a day for isolating our talent. Now, if you were listening to my forecast of the 12 signs, I use the word talent a great deal. All of us have talent, especially now when Mars is conjunct the Mercury-Venus midpoint. Mercury-Venus is a very talented pair. Mars is about assertively expressing our talents. So all of us have got these special talents, and we need to cling on to that. We need to protect those talents, and we need to make sure that those are the talents that make us special. But I think there's a danger that we use our talents and our abilities in the wrong way. We're so anxious to show the world what we can do that we mess it up. The I Ching gives us a symbol of a straw fire. So a straw fire is very bright, but it's fast. The straw burns itself out quickly, and we've got nothing left but ashes. So don't burn out your abilities too quickly. Don't burn out your talents. They need to be expressed in the proper way, and that requires a bit of patience, I think. And so that's the fourth line moving, which is about the straw fire. Then the last line moves, the top line moves. And the top line moving may indicate a couple of things. It might simply indicate an end, an end and a beginning. So, we were in a situation where we weren't really able to use our abilities. We tried, but it just didn't work out. We used them in the wrong way. But now we're coming to the end, and it's a new cycle, and that's something fortunate. Alternatively, it may be a time when we kind of realize that there are some people who are really holding us back, and we need to confront those people, or maybe we need to confront something within ourselves. What is it? What is it in ourselves that is holding us back? Because we must always look into ourselves for the root cause of a problem before we look into the outside world. We need to heal ourselves first before addressing the outside world. And so there may be certain things in our own conscious and unconscious mind that are holding us back, and that's something we need to address. Now, this hexagram, the clinging, it does move. And it moves to hexagram number 36, which is the darkening of the light. The symbol here is the sun going under the horizon. You see there's only one sun left here, bottom three lines, the sun, and then it's under the horizon. So in the end, these abilities that we've been really trying to focus on, we may actually find that we just we can't get credit. And I think that is a problem. We may just find that, we've got all these talents, but no one seems to be interested in them. Hence, the darkening of the light. But it's not all bad. I think we just have to recognize our position. We are in a strong position in the sense that we've got something. We've got something that no one can take away from us. It's just that in the short term, it may be people who are less able than us are getting the credit. And that might be really annoying. But we just have to be patient. Certainly not a time for just angrily telling the world what we can do. Because people won't listen, we'll just sound stupid. We need to allow ourselves to be recognized. And, this could take time. Right now, the inferior people, as the I Ching likes to say, whoever those inferior people are getting the credit, okay, let them get the credit. We can just quietly develop ourselves, and in the end, we will be vindicated. But I think, some patience is required. Okay, so that is the I Ching, and I now want to look at the eclipse in April. So it's 2 months away. So let's have a look at this eclipse. So this is the eclipse on April the 8th, 2024. I make it 7:21 London time, Westminster time. Um, so how do we deal with this eclipse? Um, you can see it's a new moon. There's a north node. When you've got a new moon or a full moon close to the north node, that generally indicates it's an eclipse. This new moon is amazingly, it's exactly conjunct Charon. Charon, that tiny comet, which I'm often very dismissive of, the wounded healer, although sometimes seen as being a bit of a maverick. A time for not following the crowd. But I do think that this new moon eclipse may really start to demonstrate what Chiron really means. But before I look at this eclipse in detail, I wanted to consider the Metonic Cycle, and I wanted to go back 19 years. And to look at the previous eclipse. So the previous eclipse, okay, here's the previous eclipse. April the 8th, 2005. So 19 years previously. You see, and it's at 1906. You can see it's in exactly the same position. New moon 1924 Aries. We go back exactly 19 years, and the moon is at new moon at 1906 Aries. This new moon is set for the Vatican City. Reason I've set it for the Vatican City is because Pope John Paul II died at the beginning of April before the new moon, and then this new moon took place just before his successor, Benedict the XVI, was appointed. So I thought, okay, well, maybe that's a big deal. Did this eclipse portend the new Pope, Benedict the XVI? Benedict the XVI, I suppose while I'm at it, so I think Benedict the XVI, I'm hoping that Benedict, well, when was Benedict the XVI's birthday? I don't really know. I should know. I haven't got his chart here. But I think that Benedict, I'm fairly sure that Benedict the XVI was an Aries, and so maybe that fits. Benedict the XVI being made Pope just after this new moon, but I'm not going to make a big deal of it. I mean, I don't think that for most people on Earth, this was a particularly dramatic eclipse. I mean, are there any hints of drama there? Well, Saturn was square the new moon. And I mean, I can understand how some people might have been afraid of this eclipse because Saturn was square the new moon. I mean, that I suppose is possible, but I'm not convinced though that it was particularly dramatic. And so, there's the North and South node, square Saturn. Yeah, I just think it was a damn squib, this eclipse. Now, you could say, for example, if you were in England, a few months later, July the 7th, 2005, there was a series of big explosions in the underground in London. A lot of people were killed. But that's 3 months later. You know, we can't just, with astrology, just say, oh, well, there were some events and there was an eclipse just before it. Does that really fit? 3 months? That's rather a long time. Um, okay, what about here? This is a chart set for Andizan in Uzbekistan, and the police killed over 100 people. I don't know, there was some riot in Uzbekistan. So they did this in May, about just over a month later. And so you could say, well, you had Saturn on the seventh house cusp, square the new moon set for Andizan. I don't know. The point I'm trying to make here is, I think that 2005 eclipse was a bit of a damp squib. And so just because we've got an eclipse on April the 8th, it doesn't mean anything is going to happen. So what about the eclipse before that? Because there was an eclipse 19 years before, on April the 8th, 1986. So let's look at the April the 8th, 1986 eclipse. I've set that for London. And I want to look at this eclipse in some detail. This eclipse has a lot of really bad stuff in it. Let me show you the problem with this eclipse. And by the way, the eclipse on April the 8th of 2024 is nothing like as bad as this. April the 8th, 1986 eclipse is dreadful. Let me show you why it's dreadful. Now, it's actually true that there's the eclipse. It's not, that there's the sun at 19 Aries. It's trine Uranus, but what makes it dreadful is what is going on, not with the new moon itself, but with other planets in the chart. Firstly, there is a Mars-Neptune conjunction. It's a very close Mars-Neptune conjunction. Now, Mars-Neptune conjunction can represent inappropriate force, inappropriate energy, what we're doing going wrong. It can represent energy getting dissipated. So that's the first point about it. Then we've got Uranus. Look at Mars and Saturn. Uranus is on the Mars-Saturn conjunction. So Uranus on the Mars-Saturn conjunction might be death through explosions, death through an accident. And matters aren't helped by the fact that Mercury is making a square to Uranus. So that Uranus is really highlighted. In fact, you've got Mercury and Uranus on the Mars-Saturn midpoint. So when you see Mercury and Uranus on the Mars-Saturn midpoint, and you're thinking, hold on, something's going to go wrong here, if astrology works. Again, that Mars is so influenced by Neptune. So there are problems with this chart. There are problems with this eclipse. Now, I've set this eclipse for London. I was in London when this eclipse happened. I don't know if I was particularly aware there was an eclipse. I'd only just started learning astrology then. But so what we could do is try to work out where in the world is this eclipse going to manifest. And I think if we're looking at where in the world it's going to manifest, we might want to look at finding a part of the world where Uranus is angular, where it's perhaps on the descendant. So what we can do is we can use astrocartography to to map it. So there's the Uranus line. You can see the Uranus line. It's that yellow line here. So this Uranus line, it goes up through the Indian Ocean, goes through eastern Turkey, and then goes through, well, this was when the Soviet Union was still around, when it goes through the Soviet Union. So let's get a close-up on what's happening when let's just get a close-up on that line. We will. Okay, this is there's a lot of planets here, but this is the this is a chart for the Ukraine. Now that's too many lines. Let's just have something with a fewer lines. Let's just have, okay, there we go. So there's the Uranus. All of these places were on a Uranus on a descendant line. So there you can see, goes up, up, just north of Kiev. Can you see that? Uranus was exactly on the descendant at the time of this eclipse, just north of Kiev. Well, you know what I'm going to say now. So let's relocate this chart to somewhere just north of Kiev. So we're going to relocate the chart to Chernobyl, and this is the April the 9th eclipse relocated to Chernobyl. And so you can see that the descendant at Chernobyl was 2029 and Uranus was at 2218. So Uranus was exactly on the descendant at this eclipse on April the 9th, 1986. And of course, the Chernobyl accident was a couple of weeks later on April the 26th. So notice this is a new moon. Within that lunar cycle, the Chernobyl accident happened. We had a full moon approximately 14 around the 22nd, but that new moon was saying probably within the next month you were going to have something really bad happening. And so Uranus is not just on the descendant. Uranus is on the Mars-Saturn midpoint. And using Alfred Witter's view, Mars-Saturn is the death axis. So I'll just tell you what Alfred Witter says about Uranus on the Mars-Saturn midpoint. So Uranus on the Mars-Saturn midpoint, he says, sudden actions which separate, violent separation and death, sudden death. Then you've also got Mercury on the Mars-Saturn midpoint. So Mercury is square Uranus on the Mars-Saturn midpoint. So Witter says about Mercury on the Mars-Saturn midpoint, thoughts or news about sickness, separation and death, sick calls, violent words bring sorrow. And of course, as a result of the Chernobyl accident, a lot of people got sick. So I think that this 1986 new moon really did tell us, warn us about Chernobyl. Would we have got it right? Would we have known that this was where it was likely to happen? It would have been difficult, but as I think I've demonstrated, Chernobyl was exactly where Uranus was on the descendant, at least from a zodiacal perspective. Now, this brings us to the 2024 eclipse. And this 2024 eclipse is not as dramatic, nothing like as dramatic as this. This eclipse was especially bad in 1986. We can't say the same for the April 2024 eclipse. Again, this eclipse is set for London. There's a new moon at 1919 Aries. Now, we do have a Mars-Saturn conjunction at the time of this eclipse. That makes me think it could be problematic, because you've got these two things taking place at the same time. There is Mars at 13 Pisces. There's Saturn at 14 Pisces. They're about a degree apart. So with a Mars-Saturn conjunction at the time of an eclipse, that does give us an idea about the quality of this eclipse. Now, also at the same time as this eclipse is, you do have a Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, and Jupiter is semi-square Venus. Now, you might say Jupiter semi-square Venus is, it's a fortunate pair, isn't it? Jupiter and Venus. Jupiter, the greater benefic, Venus, the lesser benefic. But still, Jupiter can cause problems in its own way. It can make things bigger. It can expand an existing problem. So, I think there could be difficulties here. I think there is a distinct possibility there. But where in the world? Where might we expect things to be difficult? Okay, so we can use astrocartography to give us some hints. So if we look at remember, this is the August. This is the April. The map. This is where all the places, where all the planets would be, and what we see here is there's that. You see, that's Mars and Saturn. That red line is where. That vertical red line is where Mars and Saturn are conjunct the IC, the lowest point in the chart. And so you can see that it goes through some very sensitive parts of the world. It actually goes exactly through Tehran, the capital of Iran. It goes through, my Middle Eastern geography isn't great. Is that Abu Dhabi? It goes through Abu Dhabi. And then that Jupiter-Uranus opposition, that was the kind of line we were looking at when we were looking at the Chernobyl chart, sort of goes through Syria. So the Middle East may come back into focus in April. I mean, I don't know what's happening in the Middle East right now. Of course, I mean, we've just had these retaliatory strikes by the US after the Tower 22 attack. But maybe the Middle East is really going to start to come back into focus. And so that's probably my feeling about this eclipse. Okay, you could find something going on. You see that Mars-Saturn on a descendant? That little tip of Brazil? I mean, I don't know what can happen there. I mean, that might be somewhere to consider. As where things might go wrong. Or, there's Mars, Saturn here, which sort of goes through Papua New Guinea and Australia. But my inclination is to think that because we know that this part of the world is already boiling, we've got a clue there that something might go wrong. Now you might say, do you see that crossing point where the the point where Jupiter-Saturn is on the opposition, or is on the descendant, and Mars-Saturn is on the IC. Now, you see, that's in the middle of Russia, but it's far away from the Ukraine war. I mean, something bad might happen there, but probably not. I don't know where that is, somewhere between Moscow and Perm, closer to Perm, but it'll probably be fine. I think we should be thinking about Tehran or Damascus. So let's take this eclipse, which we have set for which we set for London, and let's relocate it to Tehran, the capital of Iran. And so when we do that, we see that the IC is 12 degrees 50 Pisces, and the Mars-Saturn conjunction is pretty much exactly on the IC. So there could be things going on in Iran, Tehran being a capital of Iran, something to do with, it could be to do with death, it could be to do with some sort of, turmoil. I mean, I don't think so. I don't think Mars Saturn on the IC necessarily is necessarily connected with revolution, but there's something difficult going on with Iran there. So I would have said that the Iranian regime at the end of April needs to be careful. They need to be on their guard. Of course, I don't think the Iranian regime believes in astrology, do they? I don't know. Probably not. Then, or even if they did, would they be using astrology? Maybe they. I have no idea what the Shia religion, how the Shia religion treats astrology. I mean, I know that in Saudi Arabia you can probably be arrested for practicing astrology because it's kind of akin to witchcraft. Or we could so we could relocate this chart to Damascus, the capital of Syria. Damascus in Syria. There you see, if we relocate it to Syria, we see the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction is on the descendant. Now, I don't think that Jupiter is necessarily going to be helpful. I think it could be a problem. It could be issues that Syria might have from its enemies. Of course, its main enemy, aside from Israel, is, of course, the US. And Venus is making a semi-square to Jupiter. So that's my feeling. I think that this eclipse in April is it's not a heavy eclipse. It's not like the April 1986 eclipse. Although I think it could be difficult because we've got a Mars-Saturn conjunction at the same time as the eclipse, and that Mars-Saturn conjunction, well, I don't know, I think it's most likely to hit down that line which goes through Tehran, Abu Dhabi, and it actually cuts through is it the border of Yemen and Oman, somewhere like that? It's parts of the Arabian Peninsula. Now, you might be saying at this stage, hold on, this eclipse, the eclipse path is actually in America. The eclipse path is between sort of Maine and it goes down through, I think, through basically the eastern United States. Well, I've looked at eclipse paths in terms of events, and over the years, I have looked at eclipse paths. Do eclipse paths manifest immediately? And unfortunately, they're disappointing. Eclipse paths may be more connected with births. So if you have someone who is born at the time of this eclipse, it may be that person could have a huge impact on the United States later in their life. So if you know of an American, well, I don't have to be American, but some some child who is about to be born 2 months before the due date, that maybe that's a child to be looking for, and that child in, I don't know, 30, 40, 50 years time could have a huge impact on America's destiny. So it's going to work. I would have said it's going to work like that. I think there was this story, with Muhammad, that when he was born at the time of an eclipse path, and how this eclipse, the eclipse path, it started in North Africa and went all the way through, and I think it petered out halfway through the island of Papua New Guinea. In other words, if you think that border between Papua New Guinea and Indonesia, Irian Jaya, or something like that. But that might be an example of an eclipse path. So, but we won't really see the impact, I don't think, of that eclipse path across America for decades, if at all. And okay, you might say, oh well, but what if Trump gets elected, or Trump doesn't get elected, and you get chaos? That will be the eclipse. Well, it could be because of lots of things. I don't think we can pin what might ever happens in November to that eclipse path. So I know that's a kind of disappointing thing to say, but I'm not impressed by eclipse paths. That's just my view. I'm open to persuasion. Okay, that's my view also of this eclipse. I think it's most likely to have an impact on the Middle East. Not least because we already know Middle East is a problem. And two cities that immediately come to mind are Tehran and Damascus, though we should also consider Abu Dhabi and perhaps the Yemen-Oman border. The Houthis, by the way, if I've got this right, are more toward on the west of Yemen. So the area that the Houthis control is not, it doesn't actually hit this Mars-Saturn line going through the Arabian Peninsula. But who knows? Maybe they'll do something. We'll soon find out. Okay, well, thank you very much for listening. I hope you found that some use. I suppose we should be thinking ahead about this eclipse in 2 months' time. So I've made a start. If you enjoyed this video, I would be grateful if you were to like it. If you're not subscribed and you enjoyed the video, I would of course be grateful if you were to subscribe. And if you want to buy me a coffee, there is a link in the description. Thanks again for listening, and I will talk to you tomorrow.